Welcome to Tossing Grenade the Windmills. Windmills.
Hi, my name is Matt Franklin. Tom's Mike has died a horrible death, and he's asked me to take over for him for the podcast for a little while. We were introduced through our mutual friend, Andrew. Thanks, Andrew. All right, on to the podcast. Gatekeeper. He went home. He ate. He came back to work. Each day was worse. The number of unicorns was steadily increasing, until 8 days after he'd met Martha there were 12 unicorns in 1 hour. He was feeling confident. The augury was wrong. The wards in the place had kept the curse from taking place. Hastur was not a magician, but this had to mean something. He consulted with human resources, and they referred him to security. He arrived at the security office when they were changing shifts. He walked up to the desk and saw a large, burly man wearing 2 pistols. Hastur also couldn't help but notice the twin broadswords also strapped to his back. The security guard's name tag said, Omnibus. That was it. No first name, no last name, just Omnibus. Yes? The large man asked. I'm here to decontaminate. Hastur hated that term. Omnibus winced and said, Right. Let's go upstairs. You have the paperwork? Hastur handed him the requisite forms. They went upstairs. The large, squat room was entirely gray. All along the outer doors, there were Norse runes of some kind that glowed softly under the dimmed fluorescent lights that were laced into the ceiling everywhere else in the building. They both walked to the middle of the room, and a large pentagram shot up. Red ghost worship? Hastur asked. Curse removal. Industrial strength. If you have anything on you, we'll find it. There was a great flash of light. Thunder pealed in the background, and for a moment Hastur thought the room would start turning around and around as if they were inside some kind of gigantic microwave oven, but in the end it stopped. Omnibus gave the thumbs-up symbol and grinned. Great, you're clean. Thanks, I appreciate it. Hastur shook Omnibus's hand and went back downstairs to work. It looked like it was going to be a great day. The people were nice, they didn't complain, and they all had their proper paperwork. The leopard ate him at 3:32 p.m. He was sitting there minding his own business when a gorgeous female Amazon, probably 7 feet tall, skipped past everyone else in the line and demanded to be let forward past everyone else. I'm sorry, miss, but you'll have to go back to the end of the line, Hastur said. I am an Omega Circle sorceress. I shall do no such thing. Do my bidding, little man. She said this with complete and utter self-confidence. But, speaking with the weight of the entire United States government behind him, Hastur said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but doing your bidding is against regulations. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to go to the end of the line. She said, You're joking. Nope. You really mean it? Yep. You are aware of what I can do? I've got some idea, yes. Apparently, in retrospect, he didn't have an idea, because she summoned the leopard, which ate him. When he woke up, he found himself in a long line. The details escaped him at first. There were a lot of immigrants, but a lot of regular people. The more time went on, the more he realized just what an anomalous state this was, until he finally left the line and began to walk forward. As he did so, he noticed a large sign that said, Afterlife Immigration Office. There were 2 desks populated by a green ghost and a red ghost. They had mounds of paperwork on their desks and were furiously scribbling. No one else moved out of line, and no one else moved to talk to them. After several moments, the green ghost finally looked up and said, Next, and the line moved forward. Hastur knew bureaucracy. He considered going to the back of the line. It was the proper thing to do. It was the right thing to do, but he also knew that it was the stupid thing to do. He looked from the green ghost and then to the red ghost, and approached the red ghost. Hey, you look tired. Can I get you anything? Maybe a cup of coffee? The red ghost looked up, annoyed at first, but his expression changed to one of confusion and pleasant surprise when Hastur spoke to him. Why, sure, I haven't had a break in 12 years. Great, where's your coffee pot? The red ghost pointed back behind him. Employee break room. First door on the right, you can't miss it. Thanks. The employee break room wasn't that impressive. They had a nicer room than the IINS, but nothing that Hastur hadn't seen before in most federal buildings. He put a cup of coffee on the pot and then waited. He poured a cup and went back to the red ghost. There you go. Sure enough, the red ghost's curiosity had been piqued, and there was his file on top of the list. He could tell from the red ghost's expression he was just waiting for him to ask some kind of favor. Hastur didn't. He moved back toward the line and stopped a moment. He turned around and looked at the green ghost, which was looking somewhat annoyed, and said, "Say, do you want some coffee too?" The green ghost went from a frown to a smile instantly. "Yes, actually, it's been 40 years since my last break. We don't have a union." "Of course, I'll be right back." Both the red ghost and the green ghost looked at him with such confusion that they never noticed him quietly grab his case file as he walked by. Instead of returning to the employee break room, he took the door that said, "Exit." Hastur was well aware of the fact that if there was no case file, there was no problem in almost any system. The outside was unbelievable. Auras of impossible skies, and endless afterlives, all of which could and would be true. There were hells and heavens and limbos and purgatories galore. Fortunately, he only had to witness it for a short time as he walked down the stairs trying to figure out this mess. People just didn't come back from the dead, otherwise they'd do it all the time. But mistakes had been made here. He had been set up, damn it. He knew no one here. He had no favors of any kind. The government wouldn't tolerate it anyway, and he didn't even know whom he could ask. Wait. Of course he did. This was a bureaucracy. He had to find the boss's secretary. The office with the biggest windows was obviously the boss's place. None of the cubes nearby were occupied. Obviously, the boss liked his privacy. After he saw the secretary, he could see why. She was a cute human. She was a lot more solid than he was. "Hi," he smiled at her. "My name is Hastur. What's yours?" "What, you mean like the unspeakable?" "Yes, like the unspeakable. You a Lovecraft fan?" He tried to sound casual. It wasn't like everyone and their dog didn't ask him that question, but he was kind of dead. She beamed. "Well, kinda. He was a racist jerk, but he was a brilliant racist jerk. But really, I know his name from D&D. We play every Thursday night." "They play D&D in the afterlife?" Hastur set his file down on her desk. How could something be so heavy if you were dead? "Well, yes, they do." She giggled. "But I'm not dead, and neither are you, silly." "Wait, I'm not?" He sat down in a chair. "No. Have you seen the other guys around here? Until you get to your assigned afterlife, you get a generic spirit body. But if you're alive, then you look like a person. You're kinda faded, though." "Yeah, I died. I got eaten by a leopard." "Was it death?" She smiled and leaned forward. Apparently you had to be in your body to have a libido. He'd be fond of the memory later, he was sure of it. "So, I'm alive?" "Yes, but your spirit must be out of your body." She began to twirl her hair. Was she flirting? He liked that. But it seemed weird from a dead perspective. Then again, he wasn't dead after all. "Well, the trauma department is pretty good. Maybe they purged me from the leopard's stomach before it digested me. Come to think of it, it was kind of weird that it was able to swallow me whole." "Ew." She sounded disgusted. "Maybe you don't want to go back. Stomach acid can be nasty, and the afterlife isn't so bad once you get through processing." "How long does that take?" "For most people, about a decade. The dead aren't in any kind of hurry." She looked at her nails and then looked up at him sympathetically. "For special offenders, though—" "Longer?" "A lot longer." "How much longer?" 200 to 300 years. Longer if they don't like you." She implied with her voice they probably wouldn't like him. Hastur had to think, just how good were the medics? He had heard stories that they were pretty amazing on a physical level. Technologically and magically, they could heal almost anyone. But they weren't so good with necromancy, which explained why he was still here. Hastur was pretty much on his own. "I'm Emily. Nice to meet you. All right, Hastur, I think I will help you. Here is what you have to do." She leaned forward to whisper conspiratorially. He leaned forward to listen. "You need to go deep into the ghost forest, defeat the ghost Jabberwock, and then dance for the ghost goblin king." Looking at her incredulously, Hastur loudly bellowed, "What?" Emily looked around and put a finger to her lips. "Shh! Don't yell like that." Indeed, several of the ghosts looked up from their various cubicles, peering at them curiously. Emily waved casually. Eventually they settled down. "I was just kidding. God, you have no sense of humor." "I'm dead." "Lots of dead people have a sense of humor." She stood and put her hands on her hips. She whispered, "The underworld has more comedy clubs per capita than anywhere in the universe. It really is just you." Hastur sighed. "I work in IINS." Her face went from angry to instantly sympathetic. "Oh, you poor bastard, I'm sorry. So sorry." She leaned forward and put her hand gently on his shoulder. He partially felt it. Then she whispered, "Let me help you. It might cost me my job, but probably won't because of how few people want to work out in the afterlife." She giggled and shrugged. "I don't care at all. I can always get another job. There are some jobs they will always want people for." That was definitely the truth. Leprechauns might make better auditors than human, given their obsessive love for gold. Sasquatch made great bounty hunters because you could never see them coming. Vampires, for some reason Hastur had yet to comprehend, made great rock stars. But for the foreseeable future, wealth and true power on Earth was in the hands of humans. It made sense. Hastur nodded. "Okay, what's next?" She wrote on a piece of paper and then stamped it. "Go 3 corridors to the left, and take the orange door. Show them this and you'll be fine." "What is it?" "Form 423J. It'll let you out and back to the real world." "Thanks, Emily. I appreciate it." He tried to hug her but couldn't. She just smiled. Hastur took the form and followed her instructions. It was surprisingly easy. For the second time, understanding how a bureaucracy worked helped tremendously. All of the little obscure rules Emily had mentioned added up over time, and he was able to memorize them because of their similarity to the arcane glop of the IINS. He took the door that said, "Exit." Hastur was well aware of the fact that if there was no case file, there was no problem in almost any system. There were quite a bit of stairs, but eventually he found a manhole cover and returned to the mortal realm. He woke up in a hospital with several monitors and flower baskets around him. His fellow employees really did care after all. He pinched himself. Yep, body and all. It had been a bit of a gamble. He'd had no idea what would happen, but the fortune-teller had told him what he really needed to know. Death had a way of putting things in perspective. He got a visit from Martha, his boss, a lot of the folks he'd let through over the years, and even Chester the Orc. Chester told him that the Omega-level sorceress had been taken out by a small tactical nuclear weapon. The United States government took assaults on its employees by immigrants quite seriously. There was no mention of what had happened to the innocently summoned leopard, but Hastur feared the worst. Chester poked the thick basket of fruit at the foot of his bed, and then looked at Hastur.
"I still think you should quit."
"I should. I'm not going to." Hastur sighed, sat up, and plumped his pillow before he slowly laid back.
"But why the hell not?"
"Well, there is the bonus pay for hazardous—"
"Bullshit. What's the real reason?"
"Someone made a difference on the other side for someone who didn't have to. I think I can do the same. If I just leave, someone who doesn't care will just take my job."
"Huh."
Chester thought about that for a moment.
"So did you see Elvis while you were over there?"
"No."
"Really? Maybe he really is alive."
Hastur shrugged and took an apple. "Maybe," he said before taking a bite. "Maybe."
This has been the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. I'm Thomas Ricks. Music by Melanie Ricks. Voices by Skip Huffman and Josie Bergen-Lawson. Copyright 2012, Red Anvil Amalgamated.
To fight the forces of evil!